Hello and welcome back to The Dive, Season 2, Episode 19. I am Jat, joined by Azael on the other side of the table.
It's me.
Kobe in the middle of the table.
It's him!
19 episodes in to the second season, I decided to switch it up and say Azael and Kobe rather than Kobe and
I
Azael.
think you did a great job. I actually much prefer it.
I really like this response.
Yeah.
I kind of like, actually, I like being the caboose here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Last is
the
not always
donk
worst.
of the dive.
Yeah.
Yeah, this episode, we are talking about some global news, including some LCK, then Patch 8.13 just dropped last night, and then we'll get to NA LCS. But first, we actually have some breaking news.
Oh!
43
We need a
minutes
graphic.
ago. Yeah.
By the way, it's funny because Azael last time said something about having a graphic tier list or
Yeah,
something like that.
never say you
and
have
our producers were like, "Don't call for graphics. We can't promise those." So
Okay.
now we're gonna have a breaking news graphic.
No, we're not.
Right here.
Do not test the producers ever.
Wow, isn't this nice? It's VR and everything. I see the dragon flying over Kobe's head.
Oh,
I can't believe we had budget for that on the dive. That's
Yeah,
insane.
Incredible. The dive is also canceled. But
anyways, our breaking news.
yeah,
Jack.
100 Thieves, this was 43 minutes ago, tweeted, "We're excited to share that Levi and
It's like
Brandini
Levi's right here with us.
Okay, all right.
will be starting for 100 Thieves at Rift Rivals." So that's going to be in a week and a half. Both players have shown immense dedication to the game and to the team. We can't wait to see them play at this special international event next week. Now, this is interesting because we've kind of been wondering what 100 Thieves is doing with Levi. He hasn't looked amazing in Academy. And we also mentioned that because they have import slots in both the top lane and the mid lane, if Levi was ever going to get time to play, it would have to be also subbing out Someday or Ryu, which we found unlikely. What I'm surprised here is, A, that it's actually Someday that they're not starting at Rift Rivals, but also B, that it's not during the regular season at all. So what do you make of this?
Let's
Is this
start with
just
your
break?
A first, actually. So assuming you're meaning that you would find it more likely they would sub out Ryu.
Yeah.
Is that why you think it's
Correct. That was what we always said whenever we'd bring up this conversation of how does Levi start. We think, okay, they need to play Linsanity, right, in the mid lane instead of Ryu, because you don't expect it to be Someday. But also, the second point of, do you even think this is a serious thing, or is this just literally giving Someday and Meteos a break? Speculate away.
I mean, I think it can definitely be a serious thing. Like it could simply be a break, but everyone when Levi came over, this is a guy that is not just a random challenger player. Yes, he has had tremendous solo queue success, but he's a guy that came over with a proven international track record. And I think when he came over, regardless of whether Meteos is doing well or not, I think Meteos has done well. It was a situation where his international track record, everyone is saying, all right, as soon as his English is good enough, he's going to start playing on an LCS team, right? Like this guy was always a monster for the Marines internationally at Worlds, at MSI, etc. So I think that this could be, a very legitimate, like, hey, you've done well. Let's test out how you work with the team now. Like he is practicing his English tremendously. If you watch his stream, he now speaks a lot more English on stream. Like he can type English very well. Like he's obviously put a ton of work in.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty clear too for the teams that since Rift Rivals doesn't have an impact on their normal season standings, it doesn't have an impact on them getting to Worlds, that it's a perfect opportunity to test things like that. So it is an element of both of those things. It's not like, oh, completely troll. It's not also we're immediately trying to get X person off of the team so we can get Levi in or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I think that we've seen, especially with this split and the rise of academy players on multiple different teams, TSM and Cloud9 and all the, drama of everybody switching, that more and more these franchises are taking the 10-man rosters and really trying to utilize all 10 positions and trying to move up people and have them in kind of like the staging zone and testing. And Levi, for what it's worth, in the academy games, hasn't like taken over a lot of academy games for them. So maybe that's why it's, been a bit longer than people were thinking.
Yeah.
Of course, he's, as Azael said, already proven himself on the international stage as well as in solo queue. It's a crazy win rate or whatever. So I think it definitely has the serious element to it.
I'd agree with that. I am more impressed by Levi's solo queue than I normally am other players' solo queue. I think we talked about this last week. It was a 70% win rate. He didn't play Lee Sin, which is what people always said. He only got rank 1 in this
3 games on it
with.
now. He's a cheater.
Yeah, well, he had like 70 on his first account that he got rank 1 with, and then he decided to do it again. And that's why we were speculating of whether they'd actually sub him in other positions, because his LeBlanc actually had 80+% win rate across 15 games in Challenger, and his Renekton also had an incredibly high win rate in the top lane. I like that 100 Thieves is doing this because, as you guys kind of pointed out, Rift Rivals is high-level stage practice, but it doesn't actually matter for the LCS race as far as them trying to get towards Worlds. And honestly, 100 Thieves hasn't been dominant, right? They kind of squeaked out some wins just to make it to 2-2 in this split. So I'm all for trying to find opportunities for Levi, and also saying that the 2 Korean imports aren't untouchable, right? I want to see how Brandini does, and I would also be interested in seeing how Linsanity does.
And I think one of the big advantages that you are going to get with Levi, and it's something that you can maybe like infer from solo queue, but also from his performances internationally, is I do think he's more of a flexible player than Meteos as far as like the width, of his champion pool, or whatever you want to say. Like,
The width of
well, yeah,
nice.
I was gonna say the breadth. So wide. Anyway, it's a big champion pool. It's skinny, but it's wide. But anyway, so he can play all kinds of champions. And when you're talking about a meta with like funnel strategies, which they have actually done in Academy with him, again, he hasn't been dominating
They did that
but
before it was cool.
yeah,
Nocturne.
there you go. So it's like the Nocturne stuff, but he theoretically could be taking, like, when you see there's like people moving around, Huni moving to play like the Talia jungle and whatnot. Well, Levi should just be able to play anything you ever want in the jungle.
Yeah. I mean, you're more and more, you just want really universally kind of skilled players, right? That are going to have skills that are applicable to multiple different champions and stuff like that.
I think it's interesting that people still have this perception of Meteos when Funnel Strategies first came out, that they're this hard farming, that Meteos is this hard farming jungler, because that's what he was in 2013 when he was like NA LCS MVP.
12.3 KDA.
Huge KDA, massive farm. But that's not the player Meteos has been for the past several years. Meteos is very much like a vision control pace jungler who tracks well and ganks well, whereas Levi is actually much more the power farmer hard carry. So it would give 100 Thieves different looks if they actually were going to run a larger 7-man roster where they sub out the top lane jungle kind of duo and allow Levi to be the farm jungler, whereas Meteos would be the support jungler.
I think we've also seen over the years that like jungle is one of the most valuable roles to have a sub at.
Yeah.
That's what so many of the Korean teams as well as Chinese teams have been doing, because you get to watch the games, intently with your coach and kind of have a lot more time to plan around what the other one is doing. So it feels like a pretty good position to have someone be able to come off the bench.
It is, but this situation is kind of different unless you're going to permanently have Brandini starting regardless. Like, you have to then swap 2 people if you're going to swap. And I do think that,
Top laners are all the same, whatever.
it changes a lot, or Ryu or whoever, right? But if they were to move to like, Linsanity's just your starter no matter what, or Brandini's your starter no matter what, then you have more flexibility of going back and forth for jungle and swapping based on only that person's champion pool or whatever.
Also, Rift Rivals only allows 6-man rosters. So I'll be interested to see what they submit. I'd imagine they submit Meteos as their sub, because otherwise they'd have an invalid roster if they.
Yeah, you're right. It has to be.
The thing is, Rift Rivals, while it's a good opportunity, and this is international experience.
International only allows 6-man rosters as well.
That's true.
Yeah. So
that has nothing to do with what I was going to say, though.
Okay, continue on your.
Yeah, even though these are high quality teams. If they all are kind of taking the same look at it as like, oh, this is a good time against high quality teams to practice. A lot of the stuff that we want stage experience, but don't want to kind of risk LCS stuff in. Then that kind of brings it down to like international scrim level if everyone's going crazy. And the first thing that came to my mind was Echo Fox had Demonte like banned for a few games.
Yep.
But they had been like planning to use some of their academy players too. If 100 Thieves make roster changes for Rift Rivals and Echo Fox do.
Then it just gives us excuses.
And what about
We're
but then
bulletproof.
what if Fnatic and G2 and
we
Spice,
slam them anyway.
Everybody's just changing out their rosters and stuff. I mean, these still are very high quality teams from both regions, right?
Yeah.
So it's still gonna be good practice and good testing grounds, but success at Rift Rivals has not translated. Mike Young, I think, is such a good example from last year where he dominated, right? He was on top of the world, Rift Rivals.
World champion.
And he has, not really gotten back to that point ever. And even down in Academy now. So Rift Rivals is maybe not the
If
best.
you win Rift Rivals, are you doomed to go to Academy?
Rift Rivals is in like a week and a half. We're going to be doing a special Rift Rivals episode X Euphoria with Deficio and Drakos when they get here. Can't wait to talk more about that. But I do want to move on to LCK, which has been happening since Monday night because they played like 6 games a week. A couple things. I think we're going to start with Griffin, actually.
Oh, baby.
Because Griffin is a recently promoted team because the LCK still has promotion relegation. They only made it into the LCK last split, and they are currently undefeated in the LCK. What do you guys make of Griffin's early success in the LCK, and what do you think it means?
I think it's insane. It's one of the most exciting stories when you get a whole group of new players making an entrance like this. It does make you think back to SKT, like 2013 when they're storming on the scene, just defeating everyone. Like these guys, when they came up against Kingzone, was it 2 nights ago now? That was going to be like the big, make or break moment where you're like, okay, they've been beating everybody till now. You had a nice run or whatever, but Kingzone are still, the top dogs. And then they slammed Kingzone too. and that's when all of the international accolades and everyone's like attention starts turning to really find out what has led to this success, because this is not just flash in the pan thing anymore. It's completely proven. So I like those games. Actually were pretty interesting to me too, because it really made me, first of all, want to be able to understand Korean, and then second of all, have access to their comms so that I could understand what their comms were, because it seemed like they always set up very quickly for plays and counter plays, and were a couple seconds ahead in positioning from the Kingzone members in most of these collapses. I was watching their jungler a lot, Tarzan, and so many of the plays would start with him waiting in a bush looking at Peanut for like a whole second, and like the rest of the team, all collapsing ahead of time or something like that. And it just seemed like this was another instance where they just set up so well as a team, in addition to the, high ceiling of their individual skill.
Just one thing to note about Griffin is they have essentially had the easiest possible schedule up until this point. Kingzone was their first test, but they are still yet to play KT Rolster, Genji, which is the old Samsung / old KSV team, and Afrika. So they're 6-0 up until that point. The SKT win is impressive-ish because SKT has actually kind of lost to everyone. The Kingzone win is impressive. I think the Hanwha Life one was actually pretty impressive since Hanwha is 4-2 overall at this point.
You're saying a lot of them are impressive here then.
Damn, it looks like they're pretty
It's impressive to win in the LCK to begin with.
But
the best teams in the
they're
LCK...
like was it 23 now in Zero? 24?
In 2018, something like
2018,
that. Yeah. They have not lost every single series.
And they were up to like
every
23.
match, because they're 2-1 against a couple of these ones. But their match score, when you include like promotion and the academy stuff, they're insane.
And that's a cool, stat to it.
And just the way in which they beat Kingzone, right? Kingzone was supposed to be the big test, as you said. A lot of the teams weren't as.
I don't think, by the way, KT is like a super big test anymore, but that's another side.
But, I mean, like Kingzone, it's kind of funny watching the game, because it was, if you had turned off the nameplates and everything, like you would have thought that, like, no context given, you'd probably be like, oh, okay, well, Kingzone is this team slamming the other team. I mean, it was 19-4 in kills in the first game, 18-3 kills in the second game. Like, it was looking like they were just styling on them. Like, their team fighting is so damn impressive, and that's the thing I think, the coordination and team fighting that really has stood out the most to me, because watching them, it's like, yes, there's all these guys who have no like essentially professional career before, but individually they're all so damn good that when you're watching the team fight, when you're watching, like, I actually was watching the game, and then I'd pause and I rewatched the team fight, and I'd watch each of them in the fight, and it's like it feels like they're all doing everything right in these little skirmishes, and you essentially just have 5 of the best mechanical players, it feels like, who are doing every little bit of the fight right every time, and that's how you're coming out with these big advantages. And it's just super impressive to watch in addition to their champion flexibility.
I would say though about the nameplates thing, when I at the beginning, of the first match, for sure Kingzone looked like Kingzone to me. It wasn't like, Kingzone looked like a different team or something like that. Because Peanut, he goes ganks bottom lane level 2. They get the kill on bottom lane, and he's controlling both scuttle crabs, and you feel like, oh yeah, this is normal Kingzone or whatever. They're you're gonna put these new rookies in their place, right? But from there, it all falls apart, and it falls apart and then totally swings when they have these big collapses, like these 4-man collapses or whatever that you're talking about, and everybody converging, and they have no hesitation, and they jump on them so quickly. So that to me was why it was like they completely passed the test, and this really did prove a lot to me, because it wasn't like they beat a weak Kingzone or something like that. It seemed like
Peanut did have a pretty bad
after
game.
that. Yeah,
so
after that it went downhill.
The start was super good, but then with that advantage, he basically did nothing, right? Like Tarzan was chain ganking for top lane for Sword. Sword is always playing carry into Mundo both games. It was Aatrox in Mundo, then Darius in Mundo, and like Tarzan was nonstop going up there, helping to snowball that lane. Peanut was nowhere to be seen. He was like, he gets first blood, gets both scuttles, and then he did nothing for the rest of the game, where Tarzan was just running over.
Classic top lane, just blaming the jungle. Jungle different. Nothing I could do.
Nothing Khan could have done on Mundo. But really, Griffin to me now is must-watch LCK matches for sure. I think it's so interesting because we now have Genji gunning for Worlds. Griffin is going to be gunning for Worlds. We know Kingzone already has a bunch of championship points. Afrika was second place. And we still haven't talked about KT and SKT, the General Telecom War. So the difficulty in actually making Worlds, which is in Korea, for SKT again, which is kind of where I want to talk about next, is so hard, because the last time SKT didn't make Worlds, if you guys remember, was in 2014.
Korea. The
last time Worlds was in Korea. And now we have an SKT team who is sitting at 2-4. They started the split 0-4. Have since beat Jin Air, who was winless, and they beat KT Rolster 2 nights ago. What is interesting to me, I have a little bit of hope with SKT now. And when they're 0-4, I actually had very little, because they're still at least trying to change the way they're playing Kobe. And if they find their stride, I still feel like they have the experience that would be able to get them there. Bang, I think playing bottom lane Morgana was cool to me. I think that's a super solid pick, actually, when you have any support with a carry Morgana, because then you're able to put your carry mid lane and basically make him unstoppable, which is what they've done with Faker when he was on Yasuo and Aatrox and that kind of stuff. But boy, they're struggling. What do you think of whether or not they can make a run?
I like that.
They're like a third into the season, but still, you already need to make a run because of the hole they started in.
I like that they are just... You can tell they are digging super deep to find anything that will work. They are looking at every single champion, every single position, trying to swap Faker around wherever they can get him. I don't know what happened when they actually took him off the team.
Any way we can have Faker in every role at once.
Yeah, we'll have another one of the Huni graphics, except it's Faker in all of them. But you can tell that they are doing everything in their power to try and find the winning formula, and they're coming out with a lot of interesting things, like the Shen to Leah bottom lane that they had during the funnel. Then they had the Morgana bottom lane for Bang. Faker on Aatrox.
Faker on the bench.
That one I didn't like so much, but they're trying everything.
Worst strategy yet.
That just proves the point. They're literally trying all options.
So to me, they are trying all these different strategies, and that's great that they're not obviously not giving up. They're trying to be flexible. They're trying to find a strategy that works. But at the end of the day, the level in the LCK is so incredibly high that it's not just about finding the perfect strategy. You also have to execute at such an incredibly high level. And I don't think that SKT has good enough players to get to Worlds. Like, I just don't think that it's going to happen. The competition is too high now. It feels like so many teams are getting better. And then it already felt like it would be really hard before Griffin showed up. And now Griffin is looking like such a monster team that when you add another team in there that's such a big competitor for it, like could they get into playoffs? Sure, right? But it could, like, I think it's much more likely that it looks like it did in spring than it does them making this miracle run all the way to Worlds. I just don't think they have good enough players now. And for Faker to like return to this international dominance, I think he needs better teammates or he needs to change teams. Like I still think it's a simple situation where SKT, they got rid of Huni, they were expecting to get Marn, or they were expecting to get, Duke or whoever, like some big name top lane to replace him. They never did. Players aren't good enough to compete in the LCK now, I think, at the top level.
Yeah, we're going to continue to have this conversation all throughout Summer Split because it's so intriguing of SKT maybe not making Worlds. I agree with you that they'll probably squeak into playoffs. They're probably not going to win LCK Summer, but I'm not willing to count them out of the regional qualifier or the gauntlet at the very end.
Exciting.
Because that's when the pressure is at its absolute highest. If Wolf gets back to a playable state, they're going to have 3 super strong veterans in Faker, Bang, and Wolf, and that's at least going to give them a fighting chance.
Yeah.
In that final 1 best of 5 decides your entire year environment is when SKT is technically at their best. But I agree with you. Their roster doesn't stack up with maybe 5 other rosters in the LCK.
And it's like, do I think there's a chance? Yes. But if I have to bet on it today, right? If it's like, put your money where your mouth is, I am not betting on them making Worlds. And would either of you?
You'll have to come back to me on that one. It's SKT. Like it's a big thing. And we're having this conversation way too early.
I have some new breaking news, fellas.
There's more breaking news?
Yeah.
How much news can break?
Well, Sneaky has done another cosplay.
Oh.
Oh, man. I was like, Cloud9's changed it. What's the cosplay?
It's of, I don't know what it's from, but it's devil lingerie.
Well, hold on. Is this on Sneaky's Twitter?
Yeah. This is like, I
love how you're just browsing Twitter during this. You're like, come on, Kobe. Stay engaged in the show.
Hey, you got to keep up with the breaking news here,
Kotari Minami. I probably said that wrong.
Little Devil cosplay. There you go. You guys are going to have to check that out, but let's keep it rolling.
This is his first.
There's no graphics on this one, Kobe. We're not getting the 3D lingerie Sneaky popping up here.
Not only is this
going to be in your head for the rest of the episode,
League of Legends cosplay, it's also the first time we have discussed cosplay on the dive. So multiple.
Actually, we did it with the bet.
A maid costume. He was a great cosplayer.
We didn't say cosplay though. We just said main costume, right?
I don't know. Can't check.
Also, the first time we had 2 bits of breaking news in the same episode. Let's move on to patch 8.13. This hit the live servers last night. It will, I believe, be the patch for Rift Rivals. Would have to confirm that, but would definitely be the patch for week 4 of the LCS in both EU and NA. This is an interesting one because they hit a few of the champions that were involved in the funnel strategy that were most prominent, like Yi and Tarek and Nunu. There were no systemic changes to try and change funnel, and then a lot of kind of simple buffs and nerfs throughout the rest of the patch. What do you guys take as the most interesting things from patch 8.13?
So for me, of course, I was looking for nerfs kind of systemically to the things that are causing the viability of funnel strategies, right?
Okay.
The strength of support champions as a whole with all the support items and the gold income and them, spending a couple of years now on trying to make the support role fun and, viable and influential in the game. I feel like this is kind of a side effect of all the work they put into making the support role not this super poverty stricken like ward bot role that it was 4 years ago or so. And it's just this is kind of a natural evolution to, we made it so possible for you to have a successful champion on very little gold. There's a fly. That now we can have 2 of those supports on the same team. And as long as one of your other champions is getting extra money from it, then it's going to be successful. So I was looking at more things to stop it at kind of the root of the problem rather than what they did, which is the main champions that they saw at the time they were making this patch. They're like, okay, it's only really Yi, Tarek, Nunu, Karthus and stuff like that. So they hit those champions. Since then, and this is after they started working on the patch, obviously, they've definitely shown that you can do it into Lucian, Xayah, all these other options, Braum in the mid lane. So I think that is probably going to be the biggest thing that people see missing the mark on this patch.
Yeah, well, and a lot of pros have tweeted that they don't enjoy playing funnel also want to note that like whether or not a pro player enjoys something is a very small part of what balancing is about. But I talked to designers actually a week or two ago about funnel strategies, and it is somewhat analogous to lane swapping in the fact that it is a non-interactive strategy with the opponent that when you practice it, it gets better. So design is not about supporting the funnel strategy, but the problem is, Kobe, is it's very difficult to find an elegant solution to this problem without having collateral damage to the support position and the jungle position, because those are two of the underserved positions in league history. As you mentioned, supports being ward bots, and even junglers, the most recent changes to Scuttle Crab allowing it to have more experience and not punishing junglers for being over leveled are really the main things that fully unlocked the gold funneling strategy, because teams were actually doing it back at Worlds when we talked about Levi having it with Gigabyte Marines. Like it's been possible for a while, but now it's just a lot better. And I think the hope was in this patch that you could just hit the biggest offenders and then it becomes like a super niche strategy. Then fine. If it happens in like 2% of games and it's this fun thing, then it's totally fine. But if it becomes the optimal way to play the game, it's a problem. I'm just very curious of how you can actually solve that problem, because all the little solutions you think of, like, oh yeah, you just got to make support items not give as much gold. Well, then supports get screwed. Or you got to make, runaway experience in the jungle not as good, or Scuttle Crab's not as good. That just hurts junglers, right? Like you don't want to hurt either of those roles that much, but there's a chance that's what has to happen down the road.
I mean, I personally actually felt like those were good changes. Like my opinion is that I think funneling is interesting to have as a strategy. If it is the strategy, then yeah, then there needs to be more severe changes. But as of now, like I didn't even really see those changes as geared towards pro play, particularly because from my conversations with some of the designers and from even you can go on Lawlytics and look at win rates and whatnot, like Tarek Yee, that one in particular, actually just has such an incredible win rate even in solo queue. Yeah. So like that is just too game warping that it's like it's making the entire game about those guys in solo queue, which is like you didn't opt into that when you queued up, right? Like you got put against it or you got put with it, but that was not really like you having a decision in it. I think it's less of a problem in pro play, but that to me was just like this. That were more reactionary nerfs based on how that strategy was affecting solo queue. And at least personally, I have not experienced a lot of funnels for or against that were not like Tarek and this sort of thing. That is the one that I've seen people complain about more than anything else by far. And that is the one that I've played with and against more than anything else by far.
Yeah, you and me need to play some more funnels. Like selfishly,
Jat wants to do a moo funnel. He wants to do all kinds of random stuff.
Like, if this is a selfish position, like I don't think this is healthy for the game long term. I want to funnel all the time. Like I want to do this every single time I do.
Of course you do. If because you already the normal way Jat plays the game is he tries to create his own funnel. He's a hard farming jungler. He's always like, I'm only playing jungle champions that are super tanky with lots of AoE, like a Mumu and Phoenix Udyr
and Mundo.
And he just tries to power clear his jungle. And then he's like, all right, if there's nothing left for me to take in my jungle, then I'll go to a lane, I'll probably gank it a little bit, but mostly I'll get those minions.
And by the time I'm 3,000 gold ahead is easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll play the mid laner. Like, I don't care. I feel like any mid laner
now this is sounding intriguing
can exist on low CS, and any jungler who wants access to more experience and can make use of it, I feel like it's an efficiency gain, because the whole reason the strategy works is when two people are in lane sharing minions, you actually get boosted experience. One person gets 100% experience. As soon as there's two people, I don't remember the exact number because it's been a long time since I've looked into the code. It's around 130% experience, because that exists so that dual lanes down bottom can stay at least close to solo laner levels. Otherwise, they'd be so far behind. And then obviously jungle doesn't share at all, but when you have a jungle item, you get more experience than not having a jungle item. So that's why it works. And yeah, either one of you wants to play a hyper carry,
all right, we can try it out.
I will play anything mid lane.
Speaking of some jungle champions, I don't know if I want to funnel this one or not, but Kindred. So Kindred got I'm pretty interested. We talked about this a little bit with the last patch. Kindred did get a buff last patch, which was pretty significant. I actually was not expecting this most recent change to come in. So Kindred essentially TLDR is W got changed back. The heal is actually back on the W now that charges up. And then they removed the 50% reduced attack speed from monsters when inside the W. That is something that really did help Kindred a lot as far as actually staying out of the map, allowed you to heal up off scuttles, allowed you to heal up off minions, and like be more proactive as far as like fighting for bounties and even just in actual team fights and skirmishes. It's just straight better. So I had heard that these changes were being considered. I didn't think that they would come through after the last patch. I was hoping / expecting that we might see some Kindred. I think this for sure would push Kindred back into play in pro play, because this change is like, even if it is not a massive win rate change, it feels so much better playing Kindred with the W heal. And it's so much easier to stay healthy in the fights.
Yeah. She was already, after the first patch you mentioned, pushed into at least high elo solo queue.
And I saw her in Academy at least one game.
Yeah, seen a lot. And with, like you're talking about, the healing, which I kind of like what they did, actually. They made it now percentage of, current missing. So it's much more about healing back up to a reasonable level than it is the like flat healing, so topping off and stuff like that. But yeah, I think she's going to be super strong.
I'm interested in the bounty changes in this patch, because this is a system that has been getting touched a fair bit, actually. It was fairly recent that team-wide bounties got reduced for individual bounties when you get a shutdown kill. But there were a few things that got removed back then. For instance, the 2-kill bounty had been giving about 200 gold back to the losing team in like that rubber band way. That had actually been removed, and you were only ever getting a bounty on a 3-kill streak, which I think was creating, a stronger ability to snowball and less ability to come back. They've actually put 2-kill bounty rewards back in the game. So you're 2-0, someone kills you, they now get an extra 150 gold to the killer. So it's more targeted. And the 3 to 6 kill bounties are actually kind of back to their old level that they were, say, 5 patches ago. But instead of spreading over the team, it's all on the individual. So that's gone up even more as far as your ability to get a ton of gold on one person during shutdowns. Last patch with the banner removal, we actually saw average game time in NA go up about 5 minutes. It went up to 37, and that's a little bit of an outlier because we had so much wave clear and the teams were a little bit slow. But this has more almost bounce back. The early game death timers being reduced creates less snowball. I think we're actually headed for relatively long games pretty soon. I've seen more people start bringing stopwatch as the 8-minute turn on now. I'm seeing about 2 a game. And I think with this and more bounty bounce backs, I think the games are going to be long again.
Yeah. And to me, when I was seeing both these changes that they're aimed at kind of extending the games and making them longer, I was actually pretty surprised at how big the numbers were for these changes. It seems like very big changes, hundreds of gold extra on the bounties that you're talking about that are still going to the focused person.
Yep.
Plus upwards of 4 seconds on the death timers. It scales up, from beginning to the end of the game, but a lot of time cut off of those death timers makes people respawning so much quicker. So like you get your ace somewhere and you feel like you can rush down Baron, but they're out there 4 seconds faster.
The death timer things won't actually affect at Baron stage, because at level 8+, death timers are the exact same. So it's from 1 to 6 is changed, and at level 7 is changed, but death timers at level 8 and later.
Yeah, I guess Baron is probably a bad example.
Yeah.
But
and in pro play, I don't think death timers will change much in pro play. Like it'll be a very small amount. It feels that one in particular feels more solo queue to me, where it's like Riven hit level 6 and one-shot me, but I TP'd back to lane 6.5 seconds faster.
Yeah. The wording on it, though, of like, not wanting the other person to lose as much was pretty interesting to me also, because there have been, there's a lot of times where like if you go for a gank and you take the kill as a jungler, the top laner cares more about the state of their minion wave at that point anyway. And sometimes, like, even if you get the kill and if you take it, your top laner could be in a worse 1v1 position because the other guy died. And really the only benefit, aside from the assist gold, that they're getting is the death timer for them to try and, correct the minion wave or, push it back or whatever. So it's going to be super interesting how that affects these early game ganks. And how quickly people are able to get back, and even
I think it's really good
taking of the summoner's spell teleport.
Yeah,
because that's something that made up a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a really good point, especially like the wave positioning becomes really hard. I mean, at a level 6, if you're respawning 6.6 seconds faster or 6.5 seconds faster or whatever at level 6, having that much less time for two people to actually shove out and bounce the wave, there's a very high chance that they would actually be able to, like, if you are both low and you can't stay and then bully them out, they can just TP back in and then freeze the wave.
Yeah.
And then your jungler now essentially needs to stay there and wait for you to base and TP back and guard you from TPing back in. Because if you TP back in and their jungler's there, then you actually get super bopped off that. So yeah, the wave stuff is pretty interesting, and that I think could have a really big effect.
All right, last call for patch notes. Do you have any final champion changes that you want to mention?
I could add some more detail to the thing you said earlier about the experience.
Go for it.
I did the work. It's 30.4% bonus experience.
Really?
Oh, you were a whole 0.4%
If
off.
multiple champions
Where'd you find
are
that?
sharing it.
Was it a law wiki or something?
Yeah, this is just on the public wiki.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know why they added the extra 0.4%, but keep that one in your pocket.
I was close.
Maybe it'll help
You know what?
to the extra level.
I'm going to say 30. I'm not even going to go for the 0.4. It's the same.
You don't
He's
trust
rounding
them
down.
to be this.
I don't trust him to be
detailed?
accurate. I bet.
Only-
I bet you
Glass
it's
is
different
half
than that.
empty.
Significant figures
Yeah,
means
yeah.
very important.
Okay.
The last thing I would say is there's been, and this will be just a quick thing, but there's been a lot of talk I've seen about, Aatrox is finally meta and Riot is reworking him. I just
new
think,
Aatrox.
just to give, like, Aatrox, new Aatrox, I'm not going to get too much into the kit. I think once I've played it, we can talk about it maybe more next week and whatnot. But just the idea that, like, a lot of people I think are not realizing how long of a process it is to actually do these champion reworks. A lot of these things are actually in development for over a year, or like or up to a year, from original like planning and concept to like changing all the abilities and locking down through many courses of iteration. So it's good to keep in mind that this would have been in the pipeline for so long, and it is kind of unfortunate timing. Maybe now that right as Aatrox is starting to see a lot of pro play, that the rework is coming out. But that being said, it's been in development a lot longer than he's meta. And as you were saying earlier, Kobe, just because something is meta does not mean it is like in like a good and healthy state.
Yeah. Sometimes you rework a champion because you can't get it out of the meta and it's in a destructive spot for the game. Like Aatrox has always been a stat stick in a lot of ways with his normal kit. And there's definitely going to be Aatrox fans like the number 3 ranked player in Korea. Don't rework Aatrox. We'll see
willing
how
to
he
bet
does
he's
on the new
unhappy.
Aatrox.
What if he goes straight to rank 1?
Yeah, I'm gonna try jungling the new Aatrox, but I haven't done any runs yet, so something I'm gonna be looking into. I agree with your point though about it being a super long process. Ready to talk about NA LCS?
Let's go.
All right, NA LCS. The way we want to do this week is there is so much parity in the North American LCS. We have no undefeated teams. We have no winless teams. So how do you decide if someone is actually good? There are Team Liquid and Echo Fox at 3-1. There are 6 teams at 2-2, and then there is Cloud9 and FlyQuest at 1-3. So what we wanted to do was pick the better 3-1 team between Team Liquid and Echo Fox.
Easy. I feel like that one's easy.
Pick the best 2-2 team and the worst 2-2 team, and then pick the best 1-3 team, and we'll discuss it. So Kobe said it's easy. Who's the best 3-1
Start at the
team?
bottom, so you start.
No, we
with
start at the top.
You said the one that's
Start at
easy.
the top.
So now you gotta
Go
put your
easy.
money where your mouth is.
Yeah. Why is it easy?
I said the 1 and 3 is the easiest. That's the bottom.
You said 3.
You
I
said
said 3-1.
3-1.
You said easy.
I said it right after you said FlyQuest and Cloud.
Okay. Anyway,
All right. Anyway,
Check the tapes.
I will.
That one.
It was
I'm on
10
his side on
seconds
this
ago.
one. I'm
I
on his
said
side.
best 3-1
I think-
team,
I think-
and
As
you
soon as
said
I-
easy.
he
As
said
soon as I
3-1. You
heard-
heard 1 and 3.
No. As soon as I heard FlyQuest and Cloud9.
Oh, that's wrong.
Yeah, you're trolling for sure.
Yeah,
we'll check
you're
the
trolling
tape
for sure.
But
Check your tape.
we're gonna start at the top.
Yeah. Who's the best 3-1 team? This may or may not be an easy question depending on your interpretation.
Depending on if you're Kobe or not.
Well, I would go with Team Liquid.
Yeah.
Because I think it's much easier to bet on the consistency of these players than on Echo Fox. As cool as it is, where they're like, yeah, we can have Altec top, or we can have anybody top actually, and Huni can go anywhere else. It's cool a couple of times, but I'm pretty sure Dardoch does not have a bunch of extra top champions every time Huni wants to play
probably
jungle,
true.
right? I'm pretty sure it's like mainly Rengar, and then
What if his Camilla's next?
could be like one other thing that he
Camilla's probably
plays
pretty good.
when
Yeah.
he gets filled to top or something like that. And I don't think that there's a lot of other champions beside Mundo that they want Altec up there and that sorts of things. So I do think Echo Fox is super strong team, and they have very talented, players, obviously. But I would definitely give Team Liquid the edge there with their consistency, especially after their showing last week.
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement. I still think Liquid. I mean, they're the team I expected to be the best this split from preseason. I think their one loss was really like a big blemish. Like they got slammed by Golden Guardians, and Golden Guardians executed well. But it's also the only time Doublelift hasn't been on a marksman, and he looks so much worse with that. So it feels like, if anything, I'm expecting marksmen to stay where they are or go up, not get worse, right? Because there's so much complaint about like marksmen not being strong enough. I think there's a higher chance of Echovox because they do all this crazy stuff of even their strategies like patch wise being hurt, right? So I think because of that, it's just like probably more consistency from Liquid. That being said, we haven't seen all the iterations of Echo Fox, and there's talk about, is Lost going to come in and Demonte when he's not suspended anymore, and maybe those changes make them even better, and they certainly, I think, like are right there and have looked really strong as well.
Echo Fox definitely has more tricks up their sleeve because, to go into a little bit more detail, until Demonte isn't suspended, they can't play their other AD carry, who they want to play, because he's an OS import from Australia. That's super
like
interesting.
pastry time.
And then the final little point I'll make on Team Liquid is Ole looked really good last week, and I think that's just going to be kind of the player he is. Is 1 week you're super worried about whether or not he'll ever be able to make it work with Doublelift, and the next week he's just awesome. So that's always a tricky thing for me with Team Liquid. But I agree with you guys. Team Liquid slightly ahead of Echo Fox. On to the giant vat of 2-2 teams. We're going to do best and worst. Do you have a best and worst for this? I need to pull up.
Are we talking current or again by the end?
I think it's kind of like
I would
right
say
now.
right now.
Yeah, like coming into week 3, who is going to win? Or who is going to be the best?
I'll say right now. I think. Actually, that's so hard. I was gonna say 100 Thieves. I'm almost.
Welcome to the prediction game.
I'm almost between 100 Thieves and CLG. Like I think TSM, as far as like right now, TSM had a bad week. They did not look good, and it's like it feels like a lot of the same issues that they've had for a long time. I don't think that swapping Greg out for Mike Young fixes that sort of issue. So I think like as of right now, 100 Thieves did have a good last week. CLG, I think if they can be like more consistent, if they can actually learn how to close out games, I think that's actually quite a strong team. Like they have had so many strong early games, so many strong like pre-prepared strategies, and it's shocking to me like that they can't seem to deal with like how to close out the game, but maybe it's too complicated of a problem for them to solve.
I mean, I agree with you. Like COG has had strong early games, and one of these days you'd imagine they're going to be able to fix it. But like that, we've been saying that for 6 months.
Yeah.
And the trick with all of these teams is we can say, hey, 100 Thieves had a strong last week.
None of them have looked very good.
They started though too, exactly, and they were down 7,000 gold against C9, and then made the comeback. So you can say it's either C9's fault or it's 100 Thieves' fault. Like there are two very clear sides to every coin.
I mean, even TSM, you look at their week 1, they probably should have lost to CLG, but CLG kind of threw that game.
So you're saying it's?
I think none
CLG.
of these teams. I think it's. I guess I'll go with like. I don't even know, man. I think all the teams don't look that good.
I know.
It's really hard to say.
It's point of the game.
Well, it's best of ones, and we've only had 2 weeks. So
I'm going CLG then.
Okay.
Or just as of right now, I don't think that they're going to be the third best team or anything by the end. Like
so how are we going to judge you and prove if you're right or wrong?
That's why I think like, but if we go back to our like by the end of the split, then it's just our preseason predictions, and I would say TSM. But I think like.
Unless those change, because you have gotten more information, so you can change from when we.
Whatever. He answered the question. Unenviable position going first. I'm going to go last. Kobe, you go second.
Right.
Also for worst, I think I say Optic right now, actually. Because I think Golden Guardians has actually improved
They were like one bad Nexus push away from being 3-1.
Yeah.
That was all last split too. There were so many games at the beginning where we're like, Optic, we're this close, to winning like 5 games, right? So a lot of the times that logic can be applied to so many of these teams. I would actually take 100 Thieves
as best.
Yeah, as best.
Okay.
We're on the same page here.
Their week 1, their week 1 was really bad. But seeing and all the players, talking about how much they buckled down after that, the wake up call or whatever, and you could actually see it where Medios, he's usually joking around and stuff. He was completely serious in all of on social media and also in the studio. I think that 100 Thieves definitely have what it takes to make it to the top, make it out of this middle pack. So that's going to be mine. Now you have your third spot, Jat. You've had a while to think about it.
Position.
What's it going to be?
I'll tell you who's not.
Okay.
So you guys think who's the worst as well?
Oh, who's the worst? Oh, man. That's pretty hard. So right now,
Mhm.
I'm going to say TSM, actually.
Okay.
I think their bottom lane has been really bad.
Their bottom lane is a
more-
whole or Mythy?
I think more to Mythy, but Sven has not, kind of lived up to the expectations that we expect from him too. Like I know he's a super good player. Their bottom lane has had bad performances. So right now, I think I would put it to them. And Grig, I think Grig has been fine, but you can see kind of the difficulties there
Mhm.
because there's so much pressure on that position, as there always is with TSM jungler. And you can see it's kind of hard to coordinate. And one of the things that we almost always see from TSM is this people have the feeling that they're slow or,
Mhm.
or they don't, start off a lot of proactive plays.
Yep.
They have actually made early plays that have resulted in early mistakes in a lot of these games. And it's only after they make this mistake and they get punished
And
for
a lot
it,
of them were because
then they
Bjergsen.
start playing slow.
And also, they've lost lanes. Like, they're getting solo killed and duo killed in lanes.
The game versus Team Liquid, that's why you're saying, if you're judging them right now, coming off of that game versus Team Liquid.
Of course, you're not going to play fast if you're getting blasted in all your lanes.
They got super slammed. Like, there wasn't even a moment.
I got to get to worst team and best team. And I was not influenced by your decisions whatsoever. But I think TSM. I'm going to do best team first. I think it's CLG.
Okay.
Because they were the closest to winning against TSM.
I said CLG or 100 Thieves. He was 100 Thieves. He says
it
CLG.
is definitely not 100 Thieves to me. Like that is one that is definitely. I feel like 100 Thieves should probably be 1 of 3.
Whoa!
And they're subbing out players for Rift Rivals because they want to make roster changes.
Whoa!
It is not 100 Thieves as best. They're not worst, but they're not best for me. Whoa! Worst, I think, is between TSM and Optic. Optic has had the easiest schedule, I think, based on, playing Golden Guardians right off the bat. That was one of their wins. They also played like the C9 team in one of their earliest stage games. I don't have a huge amount of faith. So that's mine.
Yeah.
I was gonna throw in like
You're staring at me here like you're looking for something.
I may as well talk about it. If they pick more range, maybe they'll have a better chance. And that's unfair. It was just funny because we listened to a Zabutin interview where he was like, it felt like he was trying to be the bastion of marksman after they did their funnel strategy. He's like, you can never nerf the marksman, but you can't get rid of. I can't.
He's British now.
Yeah. I'm not gonna try. He's like, you can nerf. You can nerf the marksman.
That's French
You can't reduce the range. And
He's like, I know, I got the perfect accent for this. European, perfect.
Yeah, accent coach, I am not. Anyway, now it's just a meme. We always say Optic should pick more range.
It was because in the interview, he was like, doesn't matter. You can nerf marksman as much as you want, but whoever's got the most range is always the best.
Yeah, it's
We're
like, that's not
"Wait a
true at all. Why did you pick Caitlyn? Like, I know what he was going for. Like, it's very important to still have good team compositions and range damage, and it's always important to have range damage, but it's never like, well, if they just pick Caitlyn Ezreal bottom, they win.
Wait, what happened to your accent?
Like, what happened to your accent, Kobe?
All right, 1 and 3. FlyQuest and C9. I think this is, for me, feels a pretty easy one.
Easy.
I still think FlyQuest is the worst team in the league. I think they have looked like the worst team in the league. I think their one win was like off of a pretty big throw. They have not looked good really in any of the games to me. I don't think they've had a single game where I've been like, yeah, okay, Optic, all right. Or sorry, FlyQuest, you've got your stuff together. Like they've tried some different stuff. None of it has looked very effective. Doesn't feel like there's any like redeeming, like bright spot you're waiting for. There's nothing I don't know. And Cloud9, there's always still going to be the light at the end of the tunnel that is, roster swaps. They still have 3 of their stars sitting on the bench, and you have to feel like that gives you an edge as far as kind of moving up.
And I would think that there would be a new iteration this week.
I would too.
Every week we have our game with Cloud9. More videos come out.
Sneaky, come on
There've been,
down.
like secret recordings. It's difficult because at the beginning, I was on one side where I was like, okay, that makes a lot of
You're on
sense.
Team Keith.
I was like, okay, I can totally see players not taking this meta seriously in scrims or something like that and kind of brushing it off and not trying hard because it was so crazy and it was asking a lot of players. But then as more and more information comes out, then I'm like, well, now I want to know literally everything that happened leading up to this because I want to know, did they have individual conversations? What is the growth over all these months been and the progression, and what have they had to work through? It feels like this reality TV show that I've only gotten to see 2 episodes of.
I know.
And we're like 3 seasons into it.
Yeah.
We need to know all the backstory. However, due to their LCS performance, even with everyone saying, oh yeah, in scrims, the Cloud9, Golden Glue and Keith and Zezil, all the academy guys are super strong, and they do so much better. Because they are 1 and 3, and so many of the teams have these higher opinions of them, you got to think maybe they are going to make these swaps. Azale's been a big fan of, hey, put in double mid laners, get Golden Glue and
I really want them to
and Jensen in there. That could very well happen. Hey, they could put 2 support players in, put Smoothie back in as well, play some funnel strategy.
Be like Snake.
2 real supports. Exactly. Like,
yeah, I mean, you could theoretically sub out Sven, put in Jensen, do Smoothie, Zeyzal, Sneaky, and and Jensen, or Golden Glue and Jensen, and you have Yasuo bot with a supporter, and you have
we could have like a game show every week for what you think is going to be the new Cloud9 configuration and why.
So, all right, that's exciting. I agree with the discussion of I think C9 is better than FlyQuest. That's off the table. What is super interesting is the dynamic between Jack and the players, and it's what we know the least about. Because all we got was the random passive aggressive tweets. We got the one behind the scenes video where they actually benched them. And since then, we actually haven't heard anything. So it's I think a lot of the C9 fans have picked their sides. They've said that they're on the side of Jensen and Sneaky. I want to hear more from those guys, and I want to hear more from Jack, and I want to hear that they've come to an understanding. Because if they don't have that understanding, you have the owner and coach of the team making the decisions, and your ex-star players who are disgruntled. That's not going to work. Because, in an ideal world, I don't doubt for a second at this point that Sneaky and Jensen were not playing well before the season, and that they thought that Golden Glue and Keith and Zeyzal were going to give them a better chance to win in weeks 1 and 2. What I do doubt is whether or not that decision was handled the way it should have been done, or if it was even attempted. We don't know. I think ideally the right relationship handling in our view is you have those one-on-one conversations. You tell them you need to improve, otherwise we're considering this. You give the player the respect of, you've been with us for 5 years, we're not going to bench you out of the blue, right? I hope those conversations happen, and I hope they're square. Because if they're not, there's a chance that this just spirals out of control, and all those one-off roster swaps, damn, that sounds cool. They have a bunch of good players now. We know Golden Glue's good on stage, right? We know that Blabber's a great academy jungler as well. They have so much potential to be able to swap, but if they don't have good relationships between the players, none of that's going to work.
It seems crazy that this is the team that all this stuff is happening with, to me, because Jack has always been the father figure of his
friendship team.
Ever since the old days of Balls, Meteos, High, Lemon, Sneaky, they kind of all grew into the scene together, right? That was when he first made the entire organization, and so you kind of also have to play devil's advocate and play it from the organization side, even though it looks so difficult, because the fans are always going to be on the player side, and the players actually have a lot of power. Because Sneaky's so popular and Jensen's so popular. So it's just so crazy to think through. And that's why we keep bringing up we want all the information.
Right, because the players are not always right. and the owners are not always right. And we don't have enough information to decide which one it is. I know the public, for the most part, has decided the players are right. And I generally actually don't buy that completely. I think there's definitely some fault on both sides. I just don't know where it is, and I don't know how they're going to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, we're never going to know, because we're not going to be
release the 2-hour documentary
release the tapes
that they've been secretly filming.
Breaking point.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
Anyway,
find out
that's really cool,
weeks.
and we're going to continue to have this conversation.
And I think now we can move on to a couple Twitter questions.
Nice. Was it Azael's day?
It's Azael's day.
All right. Well, we
Twitter
have
manager.
right here in the doc. So, no team has lost or gone
Who's it from?
undefeated. I will say that at the end because I've chosen this
Say it
order.
first.
Nope. No team has lost nor gone undefeated after week 2. Is this indicative of parity within the league or due to the pure insanity within the meta? Are teams better or worse? Is the game more coin flip than ever or higher level? And this is from @mistakes_LOL. Alexander Avila.
I'm glad I know who it's from. That really,
yeah.
that really
See, now it's
That's
fresh in your
filtered.
mind. Right for the question.
no,
I committed to a direction, and for me, as far as it being indicative of parity, I think that there is a tremendous amount of parity in the league. We saw that in spring split.
Yep.
You don't need the first 2 weeks to know there is a high amount. Like there's one game between basically our top 6 teams, right? Like there's such a small amount of difference between those teams, and I think that this is more along those lines. There may even be a slightly more amount of parity now. Like I think Golden Guardians do actually look better, so that's another team that has maybe moved up a little bit. And I think there is a tremendous amount of parity during the league. I do not think the game is coin flip at all. I think you have only to look at some of the best teams from around the world to really see that. Like, look at how well Griffin is playing. Look at some of the top teams in the LPL, even Liquid. Like that, their games do not look coin flippy. They look just better than their opponents. And
Yeah. The game is different now. So we are testing some other things that we weren't necessarily testing before, and that might change a little bit of the standings. But I do like your point about the teams. We had the least roster changes between splits, I believe, that we have ever had this year.
Correct.
A large part because of franchising. And almost all of the changes were made by our bottom teams from last split. So if you're just looking at that logic, then you'd be like, okay, well, there's got to be more parity as far as just the pure skill levels that they have on these rosters. And I think it will manifest itself in the standings, as well as it, being best of ones and only being 2 weeks in.
And I think, as you mentioned, we're testing different things. We're testing the flexibility of marksman players, which is not something a lot of teams are prepared for. And we're also testing teams' general understanding of like how gold and farm works, right? With funnel strategies and how willing they're able to go towards that. And 100% agree that there is parity, and 100% agree that the game is not a coin flip. It's just different stages of the game are being decided, because with shorter games, the game is decided earlier, and to me, that doesn't make it a coin flip. It's not higher level or lower level. I think it's just different.
Yep.
Azael is flaming me on Twitter for looking at Twitter.
Did you just flame him right
that
now?
was the joke.
Yeah.
Did you tweet?
All right. So that was a bit ago.
You're setting your own tweet?
But anyway, so we got a tweet here from Marius Spintig. And he says, I wonder why NA teams draft their jungle champion most of the time in the first pick, while there doesn't seem to be a high priority jungler. Wouldn't it be better to draft strategy, wouldn't it be a better draft strategy, rather, to threaten a funnel comp and pick jungler in the second phase? What do you guys think about this?
I was actually talking with Freak about this last weekend as we saw, I forget what draft it was, but we were like, oh, if they had just not early picked Shinsao or whatever, then they could threaten that maybe their Braum that they had early picked, could be mid lane. And in some instances, there is value you can get out of that. However, in some instances, you actually don't gain a lot, from hiding that you have the possibility of a funnel. I think Braum is actually one of the best at flexing between mid and bottom lane, as far as, we're going to do a funnel with the Braum mid, or we're going to have a super strong bottom lane with something like Braum Lucian that can kill a lot of these other lanes because of the Braum passive and, and double tapping. And in those instances, I feel like it's better to keep that possibility. But like he was kind of saying, there are a lot of jungle champion options. So even if you have to get a couple more bans in that area, I don't think it hurts quite as much. That being said, everyone's still preferring a lot of the similar ones.
And I would say in a situation where you are good at funnel and good at the junglers, it is best to save your jungle pick for later. But I don't think many NA teams are good at funnel or like funneling, therefore they just haven't practiced. And in that case, it's important to get your priority jungler early if you don't think it's threatened. And I think that's kind of why it's happening more than anything, is because of what they've practiced and what they play.
And one thing for me, I always look at is if, like, even if it's not a mega high priority jungler that you must have, picking your jungle early in the draft doesn't really give away that much. Yes, it tells that you're not doing funnel, but like I always feel like jungle matchup is much less important in general than lane matchups, because your solo lanes get counterpicked and they have no pressure. Even if you have the jungle pressure, you can't invade because your laners can't help you. So that's another really big reason. That's often why traditionally you see a lot of like marksman early pick and jungle early pick and these sorts of things, so that you can get strong solo lanes so they can be pushing, so that your junglers can be having a better time.
I think Sejuani also could be a really good flexible one. Like I feel like there's specific champions where you can gain a lot of possibilities out of that, because we saw Sejuani mid. I think Sejuani also, after the changes, can be a good support, and we've seen it a couple times in pro play already that she has been a support too. So there are options out there if your players are well equipped to execute on a complicated draft like that.
Flex
for
picks
you to
are
gain.
king.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the meta right now, is there are so many possibilities of trying to flex around to get better matchups for yourselves.
All right, Azale, hit us with that final Twitter question. What do you got?
I think that's gonna do it for this week.
You ran out?
You ran out. 2 questions.
Ha! Mine was better.
Good job, Kobe. I can bring us some more. Do you want a fun question to finish it off?
Yeah, give us a fun question.
Here, we can do a fun question then. From Pascal at Come At Me Doe. Which 4 pros would you like to play with for a week in Flex or Normals, just to have some fun?
4 pros to play with in
pros.
Flex.
Yep.
I don't play Normals.
Flex or Normals.
Yeah, so you would do Flex.
Huni for sure, because not only is he super good, but he's really, really funny, especially for team comms. And he'll do stuff like, I actually played with the old Immortals squad. Without Rainover, because Rainover was doing something else, and Huni was like,
"So you got playing jungle for like
for and we actually got beat because the team we were playing against, I forget, it was most of another team, and they lane swapped on us, and I didn't know what I was doing in the jungle, and I was like, oh yeah, I've seen this so many times. I'm just gonna go up here and counter the dive or whatever, but like in the game I got super lost. Anyways, the point of the story was that Huni was immediately was like, how do you feel about Callista top? I was like, great, bind with me.
Yeah.
And it was actually super fun. So like, I definitely would want Huni on my team. I feel like Wild Turtle is also
good one.
A super fun guy to have on your team for Flex. None of these guys are going to rage at me as well. That's why I'm picking this team.
Who's your mid laner?
Faker. Has to be Faker. That's just
cool.
I
thought we were talking NA LCS.
It's for... It says pros.
Doesn't say NA LCS.
But he doesn't even
pros.
speak like great English. Don't you want to have?
So when he's flaming me for being completely inept, I won't even know what he's saying. I'm not going to understand. How do I know if I can?
I'm going perks.
I can do former pros too.
I'm going perks because I like
pros. Doesn't say former.
I'm doing former.
I'm not done with my list. Right. I like perks. He's also he's been really fun at events.
Yeah.
And I feel like him and Huni would just come up with some crazy strategy for us or whatever. And then I need one more. I need a support, I guess.
Afro's fun to play with, I would.
That's true.
Yeah.
But now you got this international gate opened up. I feel like I need to reach out.
You're thinking about the EU LCS.
Yeah, for me, playing with Faker would just be cool to say I played with Faker. I mean, the guy is the greatest, right? It's just like,
actually, you can start.
I just want to say I played with Faker. I don't even care about I just be taking screenshots and stuff. I'm like 0-10. I'm like, but look, Faker's on my team.
You can make a YouTube video. I played with Faker. Get like
Isaiah's all about the Instagram.
Views. There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I want to play with Huni. The mid lane is the hardest one for me to decide. That's why I was like asking you. Perk sounds fine. I'm gonna jungle. And I want to play with Cutie Pie and Afromoo.
Cutie Pie's not a pro.
He's a former pro. And I used to play with them.
Our boy Pascal wanted pros.
He is super fun to play solo queue with.
Yeah, I bet.
Because he's super troll and good.
All right, well, there you go, Pascal. That's our answer. And that's going to do it for this episode of The Dive. Thank you all for joining us. The next episode will be a very special episode. with some very EU guests. We're gonna have Deficio.
It said average in the script.
Yeah.
You want to say EU instead?
It's a synonym, you know.
Okay,
you can
okay,
exchange.
okay.
So it's Drakos and Deficio. They're going to be joining us next week on the dive. We're going to be talking about Rift Rivals. Remember, we're going to be having our bet, so we can talk some more about that. If you guys have any great ideas for the bet, but I think we might be doing we have some good ideas that we've been cooking up. I don't think it's going to be a caution bet. I don't know if we're going to reveal it just yet. But anyway, until then, we're going to have NA LCS kicking off this weekend at 1:30 Pacific on Saturday with the NA LCS countdown. It's going to be TSM versus Cloud9.
You got rid of the smoothie. Good job.